Namaste and welcome to another episode of A Questioning Mind. I'm your host Saga, and today I have a special request. Before we begin, please go and like the video. We're going to start with a very exciting episode, and I would really request that you go and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already, and share the word about an exciting podcast that has long-form conversations about subjects across the board. And today I'm very excited to welcome a new guest. Mohal, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Agarika. Pleasure to be here.
All right, so guys, Mohal is based out of the US. He's in Los Angeles right now, and he's joining me to talk about FTX. And we've been following the entire episode over social media, over mainstream media, and the turnaround has been fascinating. 2 months ago, CNBC had an in-depth uh, recording with Sam Bankman-Fried, who goes by SBF, and it's been fascinating to see him being questioned about entrepreneurship, about altruism, about philanthropy, and then go on to see the dismantling of the FTX empire, so to speak. And Mohal is somebody who has a lot of experience with macrofinance, macroeconomics, and also hosts his own podcast on Spotify, which has a lot of episodes, a lot of content, and I will link that down below for you all to check out. So, Mohal, to begin with, I'm going to let you take the floor and discuss some of the main actors in the scenario.
Yeah, thanks, Agarika. So, the past 2 weeks has been completely dominated by this SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, and the FTX saga, where the exchange is now bankrupt, and there are a lot of It's become one of the largest fraud scandals in the recent memory. So, who sang Bankman-Fried, or popularly known as by his initials SBF. So SBF, he's a pretty young guy. He's like just 30 years old. He's the son of Barbara Fried and Joseph Bankman.
Mhm.
That's where like the Bankman and the Fried,
Right.
the two, he's taken the last names of his mom and dad. So they both are professors at Stanford Law, and his aunt also is like a current dean of the Columbia University of Public Health. So they are like pretty well connected elite people. Sam initially attended MIT from 2010 to 2014. After that, he joined a quant trading firm called Jane Street Capital. Now, after leaving Jane Street Capital, he formed first the his own trading firm, which was called as Alameda Research, and later he formed the FTX, or the now I would say infamous FTX, in summer of 2019. Now, the other main character in here is like Caroline Ellison. So she also is like well connected, or I mean, from the elite families, as we say. So her father, Glenn Ellison, he is the professor of economics at MIT, and her mother, Sarah Ellison, is also an economist at MIT. So, pretty well off and connected backgrounds. So Caroline, from the reports, what we say, like she had a love of mathematics. She was a very bright student, uh, and she also competed multiple times in the math prize for girls, the a national contest that draws the brightest young minds in mathematics. So she was like a natural mathematician who was highly spoken of.
So, just for context, I'd just like to paint the not so pretty picture, unlike the one, unlike their prior backgrounds. They just seem like normal high achievers. And yet, today, when we look at their antics and what the media has now started talking about, is that these are players in one of the biggest frauds, financial frauds in recent times. The scale of it is mind-boggling. They've been donors to the Democratic Party, which is the one of the two major parties in the US. So for millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So it's no small amount. They've been involved in backing several other venture funds, several other um, cryptocurrencies and exchanges. And now that it's all come tumbling down, we hear a lot of the noise being that essentially they were given a free pass. There was no due diligence done on their organizations. They were already in fraud. So, that high achieving math student has a lot of baggage about how she used to think about management of employees, how what she thought about drugs, what the kind of personal lives that have been discussed. Those are at the forefront of the news media, which is in sharp contrast to the backgrounds that and the kind of things that you'd think they would be part of at this time, and the kind of clean image that they had built over these last few years, and the meteoric rise to their financial greatness. So, how did this happen? Like, how did it all unravel? Like 2 months ago, I was watching the CNBC video, and I will link it down below, where they were questioning him about his altruism and how he achieved so much by
Effective altruism, not even altruism. It's like a
so
effective.
effective altruism is something that's that's a buzzword that came in later for him. This video was mostly focused on, oh, he's such a nice guy, he's got so much
Mm-hmm.
money, he doesn't have a
Yeah,
Lamborghini, he drives a Corolla, so that kind of thing. He lives in the Bahamas, he has $1 million mansion, but it's meant for 4 people, but he's
yeah,
packing 10 people. He's not got a Lamborghini, he's
yeah.
got a
Toyota
uh,
Corolla.
Toyota Corolla and those kinds of things.
Yeah,
Now we discover how much of that was not real money.
yeah,
So essentially, what is
yeah.
this money? What happened to him? So
Yeah.
and
So.
we're going through the other
Mhm.
actors as well, right?
Yeah. So the other, I mean, so these Sam, I mean, or SBF and Caroline were the two main actors. There are like two side actors. I mean, who will introduce into this whole game of characters. So one of them was Gary Gensler. So he is the
Mm-hmm.
current chair of the SEC, but he used to be so Securities and Exchange Commission, and he was also the former chair of the CFTC, which is the Commodity Futures and Trading Commission. And I'll come to the links with SBF like later in the podcast. And the fourth person is Changpeng Zhao, or CZ as he known. He was the co-founder and the CEO of Binance, and that's the like the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange.
So yeah, how are these people linked to SBF and Caroline? And about Binance, the deal that they had brokered to buy FTX did not go through. So what happened there? Was Binance responsible for the due diligence, or was it because right after that is when the unraveling happened, and they backed out of the deal? But now, pretty much all crypto exchanges are in, downfall mode. So what is going on?
Yeah, so I think what happened is like once the customer funds were missing, and there were a lot of there's a I think federal investigations into them. I think CZ had realized that it was too risky because the amount of losses could be like pretty high. So at that point, he said like it didn't make any sense to be the white knight and save FTX and just let it fail. And I guess I mean then things just unraveled from there.
Right. So let's talk about that actual rise. The rise of SBF and the way he's been portrayed. It's been again extremely impressive to watch this very young person be declared the next Warren Buffett, be on the Forbes magazine, and all of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, how is he made up? How was he
Yeah.
pictured by the masses?
So after leaving Jane Street Capital in 2017, SBF sets up this Alameda Research with, I believe, like Gary Wang, if I remember correctly, one of the other top executives who's at there. So the story is that, I mean, and now there are like many doubts that even if that original story of how he made his money is true or not, because as of last thing, like they say, Alameda Research is like in a 3.7 billion hole, which is no small hole. So the original myth story, whatever you want to call it, is like they used to they used to arbitrage the BTC price
Right.
difference in like US and Japan. So like arbitrage is like for the listeners like who don't know is basically when let's say the price of a commodity is like X in US and Y in India, and let's say y is greater than x, then I would buy it in US and I would sell it in India and pocket the difference. So that was the arbitrage. I mean, they claimed it was so successful that he used to make millions of dollars a day, and then supposedly they had like 10 or 20 million profits they were reaping in the early days. So that's how he got the start, where he initially, the claim is that he made his money by the arbitrage. Then he set up this Alameda research, where, I mean, it's not very clear on what they were up to on all of the quants. I mean, some of it is like might be proprietary trading strategies, but I mean, he was just exploiting, as we say, the inefficiency in the Bitcoin market across like various nations. So in 2019, I think so initially this office was out in California, so they moved it to Hong Kong because he realized that the Hong Kong was a more friendly regulatory market, and he moved with his small band of traders like Caroline and other stuff
Mm.
to move it to Hong Kong. Now in 2019, he also starts up this exchange, crypto exchange called FTX. I mean, FTX is just a short name form for futures exchange. So at that time, CZ, he convinces CZ like 6 months after the start. CZ buys a 20% stake in FTX for around $100 billion, and he gets the funding. Now, fast forward to like July. I mean, in the Bitcoin bull market, like when the prices were going up exponentially in like last year, he starts setting up this Series A, Series B, Series C funding. So he gets, I think in July 2021, he got a 900 million investment at a $18 billion valuation from investors such as SoftBank, Sequoia Capital, and
Mm.
like pretty big firms. Now, uh, in 2021, what he did was, later on he again moved his headquarters to FTX to Bahamas.
Yes.
So because it was a more friendly crypto regulation, and just January of this year, he was able to get the valuation up to an astronomical $32 billion, and they raised like 400 million in the Series C funding. I mean, as per some reports before its demise, some claim that it was the third largest crypto exchange in the world. And I mean, as you were sharing the screen, like he was over this summer, he was I mean, and we can go over that whole host of factors, like why he was the darling of the media, the tech people, the investment community, the politicians. I mean, he was on the cover of Fortune magazine. I mean, I think if you can share that one more time. I think Fortune magazine even called him as the next Warren Buffett, so.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then he had
So,
pledged to also like the he also espoused the effective altruism, which is to
mm,
basically make as much money as possible and, like, effect a positive change in the world. Yeah,
mm,
sorry, it was the Fortune magazine, not the Forbes, which said the next Warren Buffett.
yeah. I know you mentioned Fortune. The thing is, even experienced veterans in the field, you've seen Nikesh Arora also say something like this guy was such a genius, apparently, that he was playing League of Legends during meetings. That's considered to be the.
Wonder kid, right? A wonder kind. Sorry, what do you
I
say?
mean, how it's not about uh, it's like somebody has already created that image that regardless of
Yeah.
whatever he does, the lack of seriousness that he displays is also going to be taken as genius.
Mm-hmm.
And now that people are going back to older videos of him where he seems to be literally shaking, excuse me, quivering on an interview. His chair is shaking to the point where it's rather distracting and it's hard to concentrate on him. He was a genius because everybody said he was so. He did not show any. Yeah, apart from the millions, which definitely puts him in that league. But that was also because the due diligence was not conducted as appropriately as necessary. Because now we see that their finances were in the doldrums since 2021, at least in billions of dollars. They were in losses in billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And still, it was portrayed like he was making money while he is still continuing to, be play video games and update his scores on the internet. And so that there's several points actually about his behavior that we can come to later. But yeah, would you walk us through the part where it actually starts to unravel and what happens with Binance and FTX not eventually coming together, and also Alameda and the kind of role it has to play?
Yeah, so first on the part like where I mean we introduced CZ or Changpeng Zhao earlier. So after like CZ invested like 20% of for 100 million stake in FTX, the reports say that like some report that the relationship soured later on. The the story goes that FTX I mean was applying for license in Gibraltar, and the Gibraltar authorities wanted more information on CZ because CZ had a 20% stake in FTX. Now, FTX lawyers and advisors claim that they sent out multiple requests for like Zhao's details of wealth ownership and stuff like that. But according to their claim that Zhao and like his people never reported back, and they felt that Zhao was like deliberately slowing them, or like they're not paying enough attention, and like was impeding them uh, in their business operations. So later on, what happened is tired of waiting, the report says that uh, SBF bought out the stake from Zhao for around 2 billion. I mean, there's a astronomical rise, right? I mean, he invested 100 million and he got out 2 billion. So 2 billion, he buys it out, and I mean, how he buys it and what stuff that will come to later. So he bought it, but like the relationship had soured at that point where CZ and SPF were not like the best buddies anymore.
Right. Nice. All right. So that is when Binance. So what happened with Binance saying that they would buy FTX? So that's the acquisition that did not go through because of the due diligence that the
No,
Gibraltar
that
government
that was just like this in the past two
made.
weeks.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
like we are talking about like I would say like 2020, late 2020. I mean around 18 months post the stake being bought. So this is like
Right.
well before the events. So what happened next was the events of 2022. So now in 2022, the earlier tremors were like the many of the crypto firms were going under. I mean, so as you know, in cryptocurrencies, there's usually a bull phase and there is a bear phase. In the bull phase, there's a huge run up in these cryptocurrencies, and in the bear phase, they have a severe drawdown, like many times 80-90%. So what ended up happening? I mean, as a great Warren Buffett, the legendary investor, says like it's only when the tide goes out you learn who you learn that who has been swimming naked. So the downturn in the broader crypto market in 2020 happens. The Terra algorithmic stable coin breaks its peg with the dollar, and it collapses the Luna token, which basically goes to zero. So what this does is the first domino to fall is basically that in June 2022, Three Arrows Capital firm fails to meet its margin calls, because they're like, I mean, all of them were doing leverage trade, like they don't invest the whole thing. They do margin trading where you put up a certain amount and you can bet a much larger number. So once now this creates this cascading thing which will end up at FTX. But for now, Three Arrows went into trouble. Now they couldn't pay their loans to Voyager Digital, another cryptocurrency broker. So the Three Arrows had an effect on Voyager Digital, and then the Voyager Digital was also in serious trouble. Later on, even other lenders like Celsius paused their withdrawals and filed for bankruptcy. So, what happens at this point? SBF suddenly swoops in like a white knight, and he brokers two deals. So, one deal is a 500 million loan facility with Alameda for supporting Voyager, And the second one is he also another company called BlockFi. He gives a 250 million revolving credit facility to BlockFi. So yeah, exactly. As Jim Cramer says, like he proclaims on TV in like June 2022 that, oh, he's the new JP Morgan and he's saving all of this. He's doling out credit lines to save all these crypto institutions. I mean, just for like a historical background, after the crash of, I believe it was like 1907, JP Morgan was bailing out all the financial institutions, and he became eventually bought some of these institutions, and he became like a big player in the banking sector by like the maybe by 1913 or so on. I mean, but there's interesting backstory that some of the crashes, like JP Morgan was alleged to have done himself to his own benefit. Anyways, I'm like
But
diverting at this
also,
point.
no, historically, when you said, I was just thinking that Jim Cramer remains undefeated.
Oh yeah, I mean Jim Cramer, like when he says something, I mean that the betting market would say like the opposite is supposed to happen. So
Absolutely. So in this case, he's, remains undefeated with this take as well, where,
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
he's
So
supporting and
yeah. So what happens is like basically in summer, many think that the contagion which could have spread through the entire cryptocurrency market has been contained because Voyager and BlockFi, that this loan facility from Alameda and SBF has saved the crypto market. But the big one, I mean, those were just the initial tremors. The big one happens in November 2022. So on November 2nd, and I mean, you can share that on the screen for the viewers. Like Coindesk reports that it has received a that it had received a leaked snapshot of the Alameda balance sheet. So out of like 14.6 billion in assets, 3.7 billion were just the FTT, which was the FTX token. Um, so basically like one third of their balance sheet was just their own token, I mean it wasn't anything else. And then also they had a quite a bit of the Solana, 10% of the total supply of Solana cryptocurrency, and 20% of the tradable supply. So this
so.
sets in, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to maybe simplify it, and you can correct me if I get something wrong. So,
Hmm.
essentially, when they were trading, the assets that were showcased were being, switched from one parent company to another subsidiary of sorts. But these were shown
Yeah,
as two different.
that was later, but the problem here was that usually in assets you want to show pristine collateral, right? You want to
Right,
show treasuries, you want to
right.
show bonds, you want to show cash, or you want to show like, I mean, maybe Bitcoin or Ethereum, like the big crypto, which are like, liquid in asset, and also you could trade them. But these were these marginal
Tokens.
tokens, and I mean, having a token is not the worst thing, but the type of collateral also matters, right? So the problem was that it was these illiquid assets, and I'll cover that a little bit later on. So what happens then is on November 6th. So once this report comes out, obviously there's a lot of discussion in the crypto Twitter and crypto market, like, that this sounds like strange. Like, why would they have one third of their balance sheet would be their own token, which is like very illiquid. So CZ, I mean, who already has a falling out with um, um, Sam Bankman-Fried, smells an opportunity. So he says that, I mean, and also like, let me give you one background on the earlier story. So when Sam Bankman-Fried is up in Washington D.C. for lobbying with the DC elites, he has a snarky tweet directed at CZ, where he says like, is CZ even allowed in DC? So I mean, CZ is like a he grew up in China, so the implication was like he was a Chinese citizen, he was not welcome in DC, and so that like rankled like CZ, like I mean, must have rankled CZ. So I mean, he played this game, and now I mean, CZ just waited for the right time to get back. So he said that basically, as part of the Binance's exit from FTX equity, he got the 2.1 billion in US dollar equivalent, but he got it in BUSD, which is I think Binance USD, and FTT tokens. So he said, due to the recent revelations, we have decided to liquidate our remaining FTT on the books. So
True.
now the problem is that this FTT is not a very well known token. It is a very illiquid token where most of the supply is them. So if you dump like 500 million on the market at one time, just like if you dump, let's say, 500 million of, let's say, even Apple stock on the market at one time, you're going to just crash the value. So this got all the Alameda people up in arms that, this is going to have a tremendous effect on their FTT token. So at that point, I mean, this is like the beauty of social media. I mean, earlier, if let's say something like this was to happen, people would pick up phones, call each other, and work out a deal. But this is happening on Twitter. I mean, of all places, on real time. So Caroline tweets like, hey CZ, if you're looking to minimize the market impact, Alameda will buy it you from all today at 22. I mean, we were just getting like a front view of like two CEOs just saying, oh, बेचना है मुझे, हाँ आप ले लो, मैं इतने प्राइस पे खरीद लूंगा. I mean, like, who does this? I mean, the other stupid part is like, I mean, Caroline, okay, if you have a price in mind, I mean, even if you wanted to tweet about it, you should say, like, I mean, you should not mention the price, right? I mean, because now what happened is, this was a invitation to every short seller in the crypto market to short FTT below the target, because now they knew that 22 was where Alameda had to protect or hold the line. So if the line broke, there would be massive short selling below it. So now this is when the true run on FTT and FTX begins. I mean, and this is like just insane. I mean, I still can't believe that a CEO would put a price target, that too on Twitter, and not even pick up a phone. And I mean, maybe the relationships were so bad that I mean, CZ might not even take a call from Caroline. But it was like, I mean, unreal. I mean, I would use the word. So what happens next is, people think that, okay, something is not right. I mean, once the rumors start, like how bank runs happen, right? Everybody wants to withdraw money from the bank. So as per reports, like 6 billion of assets was withdrawn from FTX. And now the question becomes, it's not a liquidity, it's a solvency issue. So whether FTX will remain. Now
Right.
SBF tries to allay the fears, even Caroline saying like, no, 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 we are solvent and stuff. I mean, many times when the someone says I'm solvent, there's no issue, probably there is an issue, right? I mean, when they have to, it comes to that, in fact. So at that point, there's a bank run. I think the deposits are the withdrawals are very slow at that point. They're frozen eventually. And on November 11th, finally FTX US, which is basically the US arm of it, and Alameda filed for chapter 11 bankruptcy. And I think the company's filing say that there are like about 100,000 creditors and liabilities exceeding like 10 billion worth of dollars. So this was the whole sequence of events which led to the whole unraveling in the month of November.
Well, it's been an impressive unraveling, I would say. For them to fly, they weren't actually flying under the radar. Now, this is an organization that has set up in the US, gone on to Hong Kong, then gone on to the Bahamas. And we do have, tax related issues, and it's understandable for a lot of organizations to switch headquarters, but this has happened very quickly. And you've also had a falling out with one of your major investors. The one person who was not in on the whole team thing, he was actually an investor in the same market. And also, it just looks like failure of due diligence at every level. Apart from the media hype building around these personalities rather than the work that they've done, it's been fascinating to see that there was no substance to all of this hype around these people, but also FTX in general. Now, I actually have a question which I would love for you to have a
Hmm.
broad view of. What does this mean for the crypto market in general?
Yeah, I mean, there is going to be contagion. I mean, FTX, many, I mean, it has investments in a lot of crypto ventures and DeFi products. And many times those uh, folks, like, they invested their money into FTX and now it's kind of stuck. So they all are going to have like a solvency issue, and all of them will have to be are being asked to show the proof of reserves, that whether they have the actual money or has it been gambled away on any leverage bets like FTX has done. So yeah, short term is going to be a lot of pain, and there could be more maybe unravelings or bankruptcies in the future.
Right. All right, let's move on to some of the other tweets that Caroline and their team and SBF and the media has about them, just to kind of showcase the unraveling in real time that the rest of the world was witnessing. So I think this is about CZ when, Caroline has a back and forth with him, right?
Yeah, no. So this was much earlier. So this is from 2021. So I just want to
21,
give
yeah.
a background on these tweets. So how Alameda started. So Alameda, I mean, and there was like another image also I wanted to show. Like supposedly they were offering a 15% annualized fixed rate with, it said, high returns with no
Yes.
risk. I mean, whenever someone says high return with no risk, it means that like there is something wrong. I mean, it's almost like a definition of a
Oh,
Ponzi scheme. So this is how Alameda started, and many people now have issues whether they were like truly making money or they were just like a Ponzi scheme from the beginning. So back in the 2000, okay. So before that, like one more thing. So Alameda, they said like it was how they made money was initially they were. Doing this arbitrage stage of Bitcoin between few between different countries. Also, what they were, I mean, in a podcast from 2019, SBF brags that he was making a predictions on whether on a time scale of 1 or 2 seconds whether Bitcoin price might move initially, so he could arbitrage that trade by by front running that price. So he was also like a market maker, right? So they could provide a market maker is basically, let's say if one person wants to sell, one person wants to buy, then he has to get the bids and like the provide liquidity to the exchange so that he can have the two people exchange their shares or cryptocurrency or whatever. So
yes.
basically Sam was bragging that okay, we could eke out a few percentage by front running this by 1 or 2 seconds. So the speculation now is that maybe they were making money in 2018 or 19, but eventually what happened when the Bitcoin and the crypto market went up, more advanced players and came into the space, and then they were doing this high frequency complex algorithm tradings were probably beating Alameda research, and Alameda was starting to lose money. I think there is a great book by American author Micheal Lewis called Flash Boys, which explains this high frequency where, like, in a series of few milliseconds, by just front running that order you can make a tiny amount of money, which multiplied over the whole series of trading days you could make millions of dollars. And the funny part is, like, I mean, Micheal Lewis was in Bahamas and he was tracking SBF to write a book on him. So I don't know, there will be like a spectacular ending. Anyways, back to Alameda. So basically, once the more competent people got into that this market makers and high frequency trading, maybe Alameda lost his edge. So what they switched to is, I mean, in the other slide that you were sharing, what they were doing is they just went to leverage long position. This was like there's a risky degenerate gambling trading, right? I mean you just like gambling that okay, we are going to put a big position. So if you look at those two tweets, basically they are like outright
Yes.
saying that we just want to make money by getting long. I mean, look at Caroline, she ends the tweet by saying getting balls long before that, so she's just trying to front run the big run up in the cryptocurrency market. And like Sam Trabucco, who was the ex-CEO of Alameda, also said like they were like delta neutral, and now they're trying to just go long. I mean, they said like really long in winter 2020. So they're just like trying to just go like a long. I mean, it's like I mean, if he was an advanced trader, he should like be trading like both ways. Right now, he's just going on a leverage position, going
Right.
long, and he's going to get into trouble no matter what. So these were the issues in Alameda research that people say. Also, there is the other issue. Now, the other issue is that there is a probable scenario of collusion between Alameda and FTX. Now, Alameda, SBF, and Calvin said like, okay, there is a Chinese wall, so called. We don't have collusion between them because a market maker and exchange need to be different. I mean, you cannot have both together. So,
Absolutely. Can you explain that actually for the audiences who are completely unfamiliar with trading?
sorry.
Can you explain why an exchange and the trader needs to be very
Yeah,
different?
so the market maker, he takes a small commission to run the trades from the from what the people are trading. But like what could happen is that, let's say if I know that, okay, a person X is selling shares of company A, then not only I'm providing liquidity to him to ensure that he can sell or buy the shares, but what if I get the but before I execute his trade, if I get the information, if I am trading on the side, I could front run the trade so that when he executes the trade, I could make money, because I know that when a large order is coming, the price might go up. So I might front run the order, and before I put in his order, I might just put in my order and make money off it. So not only I'm getting commission from that trade, but I'm also front running that trade. Let's say it is up or down, uh, to make money. And this is like not kind of legal, right? I mean, so they could be making, and then also these FTT tokens, which we'll cover a little bit, they were also Alameda Research knew, so they could also front run these tokens. So a lot of debatable and I mean shady stuff that uh, Alameda was doing to I mean, there were a lot of doubts of whether they were actually making a lot of money to begin with, you know.
Yeah. So when did
And
this doubt start to creep in actually?
so, I mean, a lot of people were doing like on-chain analysis of what all the markets were doing. So this is like a good example of like what Nansen analysis did it, like how the whole game was played. So initially, FTX issues a token called FTT, which gives basically, I mean, the way you incentivize the holder is that, okay, if you trade crypto on FTX, we will give you a discount that maybe you don't pay as many fees, or we will give you some kind of commission, you know, to trade. But if you are holding the FTT token, so you're incentivized to own the FTT token if you're trading on the FTX exchange, or there you give them preferential access to their lower fees, no cost withdrawals, which gave it some self worth to the FTT token. Because otherwise, who would buy an FTT token?
True.
Now what FTX did was, they used these commissions of the people who there, and they used to buy their own token in. So that used to, like, you know, push the price up, because the not only the FTX users are buying, but FTT themselves were buying it with the commissions. So they were pushing the token price up. Now
Right.
what this does is, it creates an artificial scarcity, right? So I mean, it's I mean, not exactly, but I would say like it's like a stock buyback. You're just reducing the available supply to inflate the demand. Now, what this does is that once the FTT, now remember, Alameda has a lot of FTT tokens. They are using the users' revenue to buy more tokens. And there's also something called like burning, which, I mean, basically it's like burning tokens in crypto. And basically, it's like a stock buyback. Like you're just buying more of them, reducing the available supply, so the price gets pushed up because there's only a limited supply. Eventually Alameda says, okay, the price is up, my assets which are in FTT tokens just went up. So let's say if they go higher, I'm going to use this as a collateral and to borrow real money. So if I want a US dollar loan, I'm going to inflate the price of the token I
Right.
issued. I'm going to inflate the price, and then I'm going to go to another lender and say, hey, give me a loan. So obviously I'll need a, I mean, most people will ask for a collateral. So I'll give them my token which I already inflated by buying it, and I'll give them as the collateral. And the other part is, it gets even more insane than that. So yeah, so this shows like how the whole game was played. I mean, they pumped their prices and they buy their token. Now the SBF also created another token called Serum in with FTT, which was like, the interesting part is, it was like a decentralized exchange on Solana. I don't want to get into the details, but they only had a low circulating supply of 10%. So out of the overall supply which was going to be released over a period of years, they only push 10% out and they pump it up. So what happens is that technically you have a artificial scarcity. Now there's also in crypto, there's another technical term called fully diluted market cap. So there is a market cap and there's a fully diluted market cap. So let's say I have a token X. I have the price today is, let's say, I'm just going to say $1, and let's say there are 10 million tokens from the which are going to be created future. So if I have only 5 million in circulation today, or let's say 1 million in circulation today, and if I multiply with $1 price, technically my market cap is 1 million, right? That's your market cap, 1 million tokens and $1 price. But if over the whole lifetime I'm going to release 10 million tokens, that's a fully supply that. So what they used to do is they used to uh, claim that their assets are not based of the 1 million token but based of the 10 million tokens they will be releasing over the whole lifetime, which is called fully diluted market cap. So they will say that instead of 1 million, my assets are 10 million, which is like kind of crazy, right? I mean, those tokens are not supplying just by, you cannot just extrapolate
Right,
your
absolutely.
market cap to. So that's how they did it. So then suddenly you can claim instead of millions, you can say, oh, because my supply is going to be 10x in the future, मेरा 1 million नहीं है market cap, मेरा 10 million है, and you give me loan because I have 10 million in assets. And then the other company happily take this collateral and then said, okay, we'll
But
give you a
how is
loan.
this possible? That's valuation at the most. It's not market cap. How is
But
this possible?
that's what they did. So that's like the fully diluted cap. I mean, if you look at it, so when the thing collapsed, they looked at the valuation of the market cap and the fully diluted, and then it was like way off. It was like millions versus billions. So that's how they did, and they inflated the value to take loans against the fully diluted market cap in certain cases. So this is how they rig the game, like pumping up their own coins, using them to, I mean, not even using like dollars or like, any pristine collateral, just these illiquid tokens to push this out. Now where this becomes a problem, I'll come to next. So they pumped up these tokens. They took loans against this FTT and SRM tokens, which are highly illiquid because nobody else owned it, right? They owned them, and they pumped it up like anything. So they had a high, they could claim my assets are very high and now I could borrow against it. But I mean, it's always going to be risky. So what happens in summer 2022? First, Three Arrows Capital when goes down. After Three Arrows goes capital, I mean, Voyager had issued a unbelievably an unsecured credit loan to Three Arrows Capital. So Three Arrows Capital is not like, okay, he gave me some collateral, I'll liquidate it and I'll survive and he can go under. So they have an unsecured loan. So Voyager says, okay, sorry, I'm screwed, I am going under, tata, bye bye. So at that point, what the problem is that, remember, if you see the top line,
Uh-huh.
Alameda has a 376 million loan from Voyager, and वो लोन किस चीज में है, एफटीटी टोकन. So
Right.
if Voyager says, if I have to survive, what will I do? I will liquidate the collateral. But if they
Uh-huh.
liquidate the collateral, it's an FTT tokens, it will crash. So if that crashes, it will cause the FTT token to down. So what that could happen is, let's say Alameda took loans from another five banks and five crypto lenders, and they gave FTT token to them. So all the five banks will say, oh, the collateral you gave me is no longer good. Post up more
Right.
collateral. So they knew that their game was done. So basically, what people say, and I mean, it's like allegedly that FTX was screwed not in November. Their problem they were done with in summer once Voyager and Three Arrows Capital, because if they had to liquidate them, they had to. I mean, the FT token would have crashed, and then everybody's their loans with all the lenders would have, the margin would have gone down, so they would have to post more margin or they would be under stress. So what happens next is I mean, SBF just comes up with this brilliant idea, whatever you want to call it. I mean, imagine, let's say I give you a loan, Sagarika. Tomorrow you say, मेरे पास पैसा नहीं है, I am going under. So then, uh, I mean, let's say I gave you a loan. Sorry, you gave me a loan. Sorry, my bad. And then you are saying you don't have the capital. Let's say you are Voyager and I am Alameda. So then you say, oh, I am running under. I am going to liquidate your collateral. So
Okay.
then in that case, would I give you I give you extend a loan to you, because if you are going under, why would I throw more money at you?
Obviously. Uh,
Yeah. So and then the thing is, I have taken the loan, so it is your liability, not my liability. So
uh,
ulta hua. So the thing is that SBF says, no, 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 even though we have taken loan from you and you are going under, we will give you more money. So Alameda had taken money from Voyager, and now Voyager, and then now Alameda is trying to save Voyager. So he says, okay, we'll give you $500 million of credit. And then he also gives this credit to BlockFi. But now we know why, because if FTT had crashed, then his whole game would
that,
have been
that
up. So
absolutely, absolutely.
he gives the token. But now the question is, like, how did he come up with this money, right? I mean, like 500 million is not so. And then interestingly, in September, FTX, in the bankruptcy court filings, he bids 1.4 billion, even a higher number, where he wants to buy out the whole of Voyager. So because once Voyager is under control, then he can control the FTT collateral that Alameda Research had given them. So that's how they backstopped it, because they didn't want that thing to collapse. Now, as per Reuters, they reported that, okay, so the question becomes, how did they get so much cash out? So the question is that, so this is where the FTX fraud kind of, I mean, it didn't start, but like what happened is, so the report is that SBF, he transferred 4 billion from FTX funds into Alameda Research, and then Alameda Research used that as that 500 million out to Voyager. So that was like the, I mean, the account, the user funds started getting draining. And then eventually they say that maybe he secretly transferred 10 billion of customer funds, which is like kind of crazy if you think of it. And then eventually it was pushed out to save all this crypto land. And now there's even a rumor that there was a bespoke software, like a hidden backdoor, as they say, where he could make changes to the company's financial system without anybody noticing. And he took FTX funds and he gave it as a loan out to the Voyager and BlockFi and other, and even buying like Voyager in, like, so this is the whole crazy story through how they kept it afloat till November when things started crashing.
That part I think is actually impressive that they went for these 5 to 6 months without being found out. So
Mhm.
that part I think is rather impressive to keep up that facade. And actually, they were pretty relaxed about it. They don't seem to have, uh, shown any signs that they were struggling. I don't know
Yeah.
what that says about their psychology, and we'll come to that in a while. I think you also have some slides on their SBFs, especially stimulants and sleeping pills with, I think, add Ellison's methamphetamine use. So, all right, I'm just going to share another slide on their life.
And their political connections. Yeah, so I mean, this slide is like a emblematic of the close ties that SBF had with politicians and regulators. So, like, remember, like, SBF was one of the biggest donors in the past cycles. In the midterms, he gave around 14 million to the Democrats, and which was like the second largest contribution, just behind George Soros. And
Mm,
in the presidential election of 2020, I think he gave around like 5 million to President Biden. I mean, his parents were, his mom, Barbara Feed, had a Mind the Gap pack
yes.
for Democrats, where they had raised the money for like the Democrats. And also, I mean, his mother. sorry, his father, Joseph Bankman, had drafted tax legislation for one of the most powerful Democratic legislators, Elizabeth Warren, who is like
Yes.
a big progressive legislator. And Bankman Fried also had I mean, distributing. I mean, he was contributing a lot of cash to a lot of politicians around uh, around DC. I mean, on a, I think it was like around 5 months ago on the What's Your Problem podcast with Sam Goldstein. He had even confessed saying like, "Oh, I would spend anywhere from 100 million to potentially even 1 billion on the 2024 election cycle in 2 years." So I mean, he was just trying to, I mean, I wouldn't say like buy off, but like, yeah, I mean, at least make sure that nobody is on the wrong side of him eventually. And then now coming back to Gary Gensler. So Gary Gensler was the former CFTC chairman, so he also was hiring all the former CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission people, onto his company. So Ryan Miller, the current FTX US General Counsel, was once the legal counsel to Gary Gensler when he was in CFTC. Uh, 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 I remember the name, Mark Whitejon, who joined FTX as head of policy and regulatory strategy. He was once working with CFTC. And Jill Somers, another former CFTC commissioner, was appointed to a position in the FTX US derivatives board. So he was just like the ex CFTC crowd. He was hiring because he wanted to um, like, make sure that he was also not only good with the politician but also good with the regulators. And I'll come to that part, like why regulators. And then, I mean, if you were sharing that image, like the current CFTC commissioner, like I was posting a photo with um, SBF. Now, the interesting part is like that. I mean, she would later delete the photograph, but it received a lot of backlash because she's supposed to be a regulator, right? I mean, you're not supposed to be too chummy with the people whom you regulate. But I mean, it. I mean, she later claimed it had become a distraction, and she was. I mean, because of the criticism levied at her, she was forced to delete it. But I mean, she was pretty close. I mean, even like the chair of the House Financial Services Committee, I believe. Sorry, I forget. I was blowing kisses to SBF after one of the meetings. I can't remember the name. Sorry. Yeah. And then, interestingly, in April 2022, when SBF was at the height of his powers, he was presiding over the Crypto Bahamas conference, where the who's who of people were attending. Like, we had Tony Blair and Bill Clinton, and they were discussing everything from blockchain to the war in Ukraine. So I mean, they were like, all the elites were enamored with him, for a lack of better term. And also remember, like, SBF had hired Carolyn Ellison. Now, Carolyn Ellison's father was the head of economics at MIT. Now, interestingly, Gary Gensler in 2018 had a whole series on blockchain and Bitcoin when he was at MIT. So he was also at some time with Caroline Ellison's dad at MIT, and he was teaching a course on blockchain. Which is like an interesting. I mean, if you want to, it is a fantastic watch for folks wanting to understand crypto. But like, it's just like this whole. I wouldn't call it nexus, but like people, like a lot of political connections and other connections.
Sorry, it's absolutely a nexus, though, right? Like, it is a nexus. It's got all of these people who are functioning in a couple of different roles, and you find out how they were connected only later on. Otherwise, they function as individual entities without showing off that connect. But then you find out that they've eventually been connected all along, and so perhaps some of these could be individuals who never suspected something wrong. But essentially, this has functioned as a bit of a money laundering operation, and this money has been passed on to the Democrats. This money has been funneled into the war in Ukraine, and it's the scale of this. Let's not be euphemistic and call it a scam. it's beyond anything we've previously seen, and still we don't see arrests that are made. We see that the New York Times is going to interview SBF in a few days. Also, coming to another thing, Sam Bankman-Fried at some point attempted to invest in Twitter, and Elon Musk said that his bullshit meter went off and didn't really have much of a discussion with him. But this was also something that came up over their text.
Yeah, I mean, the the level of connections is kind of mind boggling. I think what he wanted to do was also like the capture the crypto space in US. So what he was pushing, one of the things why he was on constantly on Capitol Hill in DC was he wanted to get legislation which was very favorable to FTX. So here I'll go a little bit into the nuances of CFTC versus SEC. So in US there are these main two regulatory bodies. One is the Commodity Futures Trading Commission (CFTC) and the SEC, which is the Securities Exchange Commission. So I mean, crypto has been a gray area for some time. Whether all these cryptocurrencies are a commodity or a security is like $1 million question. Now there is something called the Howey test in US, where it says that an investment contract, if it exists in a common enterprise with a reasonable expectation of profits, is supposed to be uh, that transaction is supposed to be a security. Now the SEC or the security, if it's a security, is ruled by the SEC, but the SEC has tighter regulations than a CFTC. So what SBF was trying to do, he was trying to get all the cryptocurrencies pushed into the CFTC's bucket, because he had hired the ex CFTC people, and he was getting Congress to pass legislation where they would all be pushed into the CFTC bucket, which is more milder in terms of oversight and regulation. And he could get away, like, he could make his exchange um, do commodities. Now interestingly, he had bought a company called LedgerX, which was a registered for derivatives trading. Now the thing was that he wanted to offer these contracts uh, directly to the customer without going through a third party. So um, he was pushing for the the sorry the Congress to push it to the CFTC control. And then he already had a ready made with LedgerX. He already had a company where he could offer the products to the customers. So interestingly, I mean, in the last few days, we have seen this video where the CME, or the commodity, sorry, I forget the group, but there was a guy called Terry Duffy. He was pushing back hard. He was saying that if you allow this proposal, what is happening is that that FTX would be the sole person who could do this derivatives trade, and he would remove all the intermediaries who could distribute the risk. If there was a wider systemic risk, he could distribute the risk among various players, and the loss sharing would be among various participants. And SBF wanted like the whole thing to him, so he was pushing back hard uh, against it, because I mean, you cannot have that, right? You cannot have, like, I mean, you cannot have a market maker in Alameda. You cannot have a clearing settling organization FTX derivatives, and he wanted to be the exchange, right? So you just like one set of entity would control end to end, excuse me, everything from the exchange to the market maker to the clearing or organization. So that's why the goal was that I mean, interestingly, like the derivatives were offered in overseas market, on a non collateralized, I'm sorry, on a fully collateralized basis. But in the US, you technically, you're not supposed to offer partially collateralized derivatives trade. So the FTX International was doing it, but he wanted the legislation where he could allow
Right.
these leverage bets in the US, and he would be the exchange FTX, he could be the market maker in Alameda, and he could be the clearing settling or settlement organization, the sole one in FTX derivatives. So he would be the king of crypto, I mean, in a few, if this legislation had passed. And he also had like lot of backers stuff. But the thing was that where the people on the Capitol Hill were enamored by him, but like the proposals were met by severe backlash from the crypto industry, because uh, it was seen that SBF was trying to kill the DeFi
So,
industry, and he was trying to, I mean, he was labeled as an enemy of crypto. Interestingly, the media might say, oh, he's the king of crypto, but in
right.
the real crypto folks, like, he was sort of an enemy of the crypto, because he was pushing for something like a regulatory capture, if as they say, and he would be the king because he could do everything at one time, and he had the money and the lobbying, and uh, uh the end to end stuff with him.
Okay, that's awesome. Like to have that many connects, and then you've grown up in that atmosphere with your parents, with your girlfriend's parents, with your other girlfriends, relatives. Everybody is in the field, so to speak. So definitely gives them a lot of leverage over regular influences. So I'll ask you to walk us through your next slide. So this is the one where I mentioned about Nikesh Arora, where met with people who are actually veteran investors, just has a presentation while simultaneously playing a video game, and instead of a lack of seriousness, it's seen as genius. So uh, there is that, and
Yeah, I mean,
luckily
it's
we're
like mind-boggling. I mean, Sequoia Capital supposedly invested, I think, 214 million, all of it which has been written off. But yeah, I mean, he was the entire meeting. He was playing League of Legends computer game, and I mean, they were still okay with it. I mean, it doesn't say actually like whether it was a video thing and they could see him playing the game, or maybe they couldn't see him. But like, it was just like, I mean, from SBF side, he has to be more serious. I mean, when you're talking about $1 billion evaluation, when you're raising so much money, you have customers, you need to look after them, and you cannot be playing like League of Legends while hosting such an important VC call. I mean, they are going to like be investing like millions of dollars. I mean, it's just like, it just portrays like comical on the Sequoia Capital folks, that how could they know? I think they just said, oh, company X is investing, so we don't want to get, I mean, they just want to not get missed out. And I think, as you rightly mentioned, they didn't do the due diligence. I mean, look at like this thing. I mean, this code is like, oh, Nikesh Arora was intense, and like, he's like a Bollywood version of Adrian Brody. I mean, who comes up with such uh
I have not heard that before.
yeah,
I don't see how that comparison makes a lot of sense, but all right.
yeah, I mean, even like, I mean, see, even Kevin O'Leary, I mean, he's a famous entrepreneur from the
Yeah,
Shark Tank fame.
that's right.
So, I mean, he was also like all into SBF. He says, oh,
Yeah,
I see everything. I mean, he claims, I see everything. I'm a big advocate of Sam.
yeah.
His two parents are compliance lawyers. If there's ever a place I could be in that I am not going to get into trouble, it's going to be at FTX. So, I mean, just because his
I
parents are corporate lawyers doesn't mean that like I mean, this is like the part of the elite, that even the technical, the
yeah.
mind
I've
space
actually
capture,
seen a lot of finance speakers who who view Kevin O'Leary as their uh, leader teacher of sorts. He's a huge influencer in the field. I saw even Graham Stephan, and I think I wouldn't know about Andrej whether he's invested in FTX, but I think it's part for the course for all of these people who are investing in crypto. But all of these influencers are now, taking back their words, and I don't think they knew the scale of this fraud before it was revealed. At least Graham Stephan has been very open, and he said that I made a mistake. I didn't know. And for someone as conservative as him, his investment practices that he espouses typically have been extremely conservative and mostly in real estate. Until he met with Kevin O'Leary, who told him that he needs to diversify and build more brands. So that's been impressive that O'Leary has been so favorable to FTX
I
and
mean,
yeah.
the weird part was, even after this, like, he's still like saying, "Oh, I would," ask like whether he would have done it. He says like, "Oh yeah, I would still have done it." I mean, just kind of, he's still not over. Like, I think, I don't know like what kind of hold SBF has on these folks. I mean, not only like this, even like the. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just saying that, this whole cognitive dissonance that comes from investing. This is something that uh, we learned about, right? Like, if you've invested so much and uh, you've put a lot of eggs into that basket, and now you can't think of all of them having no value at all. Because, it's relatively, even if it's a small chunk for you, it might have grown to becoming millions, and now you can't really think about having been wrong on millions of dollars worth of money for yourself and for the people you influence. So I
Yeah.
think that is just that keeping up images even in your own head that causes a sort of dissonance, and you can't really take back what you've said.
I mean, on top of this, like let's say the politicians, the finance people, like the Kevin O'Leary's. So even also FTX, if you remember, they used a lot of celebrities. I mean, so they had a, FTX patch on the umpires in the Major League Baseball here. They had signed up with one of the greatest American football players of all time, Tom Brady, and his supermodel wife, Giselle,
An
and
ex-wife now.
yeah, sorry, sorry, X. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I forgot that part. I mean, Tom Brady is not having a good year this year. I mean, anyway. So, and also they bought the rights to the Miami Heat basketball stadium. So they did spend like hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising and pitching, and so I mean, it was like I mean, a saturation in the media, like in terms of celebrities are doing it. I mean, FTX is capturing the elite space, the political space, the financial space, the VC space. So I mean, everybody just thought like, I mean, maybe the early people got, and the other said, oh, we have to get in. I mean, otherwise we'll be left behind in this rat race of investing into crypto. And they thought like because of his political backing and his connections, right? I mean, uh, son of professors at Stanford, so he should not be like any shady operator.
Yeah, I think now that we know what these things stand for, these credentials stand for, they have not in the last few years, with mainstream media declining to a certain extent and citizen journalism having gone up. We see that a lot of these credentials have often not really meant good things for the masses, at least. So I think we can all take those
I mean,
credentials a
even
bit.
today, I mean, New York Times is like, and Washington Post, they're
Absolutely.
reading like they're reading puff pieces on him. I mean, nobody's like holding him accountable. Oh, New York Times an article. Oh, he slept well. I mean, but nothing about like backdoor software, nothing about stealing money, customer funds, and like I mean, it's just like ridiculous. I mean, still he's invited to that conference that New York Times hosts, right? I mean, can you believe that?
No, I mean, I think today or yesterday, Elon Musk had a tweet where he asked NYT, "Is this still on?" And it's impressive the kind of absolute. I don't know what to call it now. It's not belligerent. It's the kind of. It's not even whitewashing. They're no longer pretending to not be
Yeah,
criminal
and
anymore.
see, even if there is no conspiracy, I mean, I don't know if that. I mean, many people are alleging money laundering. I don't know if that is true. That might, maybe that's not true. But the thing is, the longer it goes on, and you defend SBF by the media, the more the people are prone to believe in conspiracy theories, even if they are not true. So the thing is, you have to call it
Why
out as it is.
laundering? I mean, how is it not laundering when everybody is involved in it? As it's not even insider trading. Anything of this scale has not happened before. And Bernie Madoff was arrested a day after
Yeah.
the Ponzi scheme
Yeah, I mean
came to
the
light.
arresting part, yeah, because it's on the Bahamian authorities. So it's I mean, if he was in the US, I think he would have been arrested. It's just like because Bahama is a different jurisdiction. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, I
he
mean the money
seems
laundering part. I'm saying like the thing is, if the money goes from X to Y and then is from Y to Z, maybe that would be a thing. But I think this was
created
just
the
like
Democrat Party. All of those places
uh,
have
but
responsibility that
see,
accounted
I mean,
for.
see, he gave money to Democrat. I don't disagree with it, but then Rainy Miller, like the guy, he was he donated I think around 13 million to the Republicans. So, but still, it's like a vast, infinite. It's a drop in the bucket compared to the Democrats.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think what they did was the politicians just enabled it because they were getting the money. So said, oh, we won't ask the tough questions because paisa mil raha hai, we just run with it and don't ask. That's why I think that's why this thing survived longer than what it might have been, because nobody wanted to ask tough questions because he was a darling of the media. Politicians are getting money, media is getting puff piece interviews, and it's like, why do you want to upset the apple cart, because we are making money. If you project as a new JP Morgan or new क्या बोलते हैं, um, Warren Buffett, then we are also making money off his image, and he is also making money. So I think it's all like a symbiotic relationship. Ki you don't bother me, and I don't bother you by asking tough questions. It is still going on today, because everybody made so much money off him, and now maybe once he is done, they will like throw him out.
No, that's exactly the point. But look, the kind of it's not that donating money to a party is a problem. It's not a problem if you have the money. He did not
Yeah, yeah.
have the money that he is
Oh yeah,
donating.
yeah, definitely,
So,
definitely.
so
I
that's
mean,
the
yeah,
laundering
lot
part.
of it
He's
is
not.
coming out in the post bankruptcy details, that lot of the stuff. Like, I mean, see, like for example, they said that I mean, in the post bankruptcy, like they had a sudden like a mysterious hack, and like 400 million were estimated to have been stolen, and I mean, I think you were showing the the sharing that link, right? That I mean, no investors join the FTX board of directors, which is kind of crazy. I mean, if you are investing $100 million into a company, I mean, wouldn't you be at least be interested to see who are on the board of directors? I mean, that would be. I mean, I'm not a financial person or I have a financial degree, but that would be like the most interesting thing. Like, why would you not ask tough questions? That why are there no board of directors? I mean, it's just like crazy that how this was allowed to go on so long. I mean SBF was alleged to, or not alleged, I would say that was the wrong word, was said to have like I think 16 or 24 billion net value, right? If he had that much value, now in the bankruptcy filings it is coming out that they were, I think he was given a $1 billion loan. So if your net worth is 16 billion, why do you need a $1 billion loan? I mean, yeah, I mean, so that money, I think that is where the money laundering and the funneling money comes out. I think that money was maybe pushed to all the lobbying effort, and maybe to all buying the homes and greasing the palms of politicians to ensure that like they pass friendly legislation and nobody bothers him as much.
Right. The also the whole hype around these personalities that like to come on to, their personal espousal of drug fueled everyday living, not recreational use, but everyday living. Let's go on to them publicly declaring, and these people are young people, so they are
Yeah,
influencers for a young, large demographic. So there's
yeah,
Caroline Ellison to tweets from her, and then of course there's
yeah.
a ton of tweets on Tumblr as well, not just on Twitter. And that's from SBF. We have several other tweets. So
Yeah, I mean, Caroline was, I mean, a character. I would say, like, I mean, she bragged on a video interview that, oh, I use very little math, a lot of elementary school math, and she said like being with
yes,
comfortable with
yes.
risk is very important, and we tend to not have things like stop losses. I mean, I said like, are you crazy? Like, I mean, how do you not have a stop loss? I mean, you just go bankrupt. I mean, a $1 billion firm is not using stop losses. That's like insane. She said like, oh, I think those are not necessarily great risk management tools. I mean, you can't. I mean, even if a Hollywood writer had to write this line, I think they couldn't come up with this great of a line. And then she refers to amphetamines. I mean, regularly using them, and it's like how dumb the non-medicated experience can be. I mean, imagine this is the CEO of a $1 billion company, and I mean SBF. I mean, you have the tweet below, right? I mean, stimulants when you wake up and sleeping pills if you need when you sleep. I mean, I have no idea how this guy was functioning normally if he was taking this many stimulants at the age of 30, by the way. Oh, sorry, below the age of
Absolutely.
30.
Below the age of 30, and this
Yeah,
when
and
he's
then
20.
in a
So
interview like with from 2020, he himself, I think if you have the other slide, like the Bankman Fried himself admitted to experimenting with Adderall, right? So I mean, as far as um, I think he was even like other drugs, and even like I think the Twitter handle Autism Capital had a photo of SBF with a zoomed out paper, which was an MSM wrapper, and the MSM is a drug which is normally used to treat depression or Parkinson's, but has off-label usage for alertness and focus. I mean, which they need, right? I mean, if you're working in a high stress situation, but I mean that I mean, supposedly they say the side effects are like risky gambling and like not good behavior. So it's like crazy, like how they were like taking drugs all along and working at this company, you know.
Right. So no, it's not just that they were taking, they were rather public about it. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of virtue signaling about other things. They were vice signaling, and that was seen as virtue as well, the mark of geniuses. And now is a time when productivity hacks and life hacks have gone on to very, very extreme levels, where people are taking 25 supplements and advising on exactly when to sleep, etc. I don't know how they it's I guess there's a lot of millionaires in the world now, so probably they have the time to get into all of these. But for the regular person, drugs are an easy way out, and that's what
Yeah.
these people have been espousing. This is apart from their personal lives, which now seem extremely unconventional, to be polite, when it comes to swinging. And orgies in their mansions, etc. So that's been very interesting as well. It's essentially a very hedonistic lifestyle pumped up by money that do not exist, and also the money that their customers lent to them in hopes of getting very high returns for. So that's been an interesting unraveling of these personalities, and I think even every person on their team, even Constance Wong, I think that's her name, the HR person, the head of HR. Now, this person is responsible for human resources of
Mm-hmm.
people managing billions of dollars. She's another girlfriend of Sam Bankman-Fried, who has. I mean, these are the people that are involved, right? They're just people who know each other and hang out all of the time, and
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, 10 people
it,
living in an apartment, the whole management team living in an apartment. I mean, when have you heard that before?
yeah.
Sounds more like a
So
hippie cult than a billion-dollar company.
right, right. But it wasn't seen that way, perhaps because of the glamour they associated with. While it, also let's touch upon effective altruism before I let you go. That's something that, oh, very interestingly, I found out that it was Peter Thiel some time ago who brought up this phrase initially. That's not someone you'd expect to be associated with. SBF at all. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if SBF found this out later, but how he's portrayed effective altruism, if you could touch upon that.
No, I mean, I haven't researched. I think you will be better off to comment on the effective altruism. I was more looking into the FTX and SBF's part of things. I guess I'll let you comment on that one.
Right. So effective altruism is something that SBF had, spoken about, and he came across as a messiah of doing good things through effective altruism. And of course, it's been around for a while. I think it's been a philosophical concept, it's been an economic concept. So just make as much money as you can, and then give it all to charity, give it all to altruism. Uh, but to create the maximum impact, basically, to have effective altruism. The whole point is that you don't just donate; you donate to places that you believe will have the maximum impact. Now, in
Impact.
this case, now my understanding is that in SBF's case, it's been very, you can essentially call anything altruism, right? Like your donorship to a political party can be called altruism. You're not buying off politicians, you're just creating the most impact by buying them off, because these are people responsible for legislating your policies. So it can be turned around anyway. Like, these are labels and terms that come about every once in a while, and can be used, misused, abused, distorted, and I think the altruism part can just be go out of
but
the window
but in
and
a
attack.
recent Vox interview with a reporter, he said like some of it was for sure, right? The altruism part. Didn't he
Oh
say
yes,
that?
that was also the very impressed part where he had this he actually wrote a text about how this was essentially a woke concept that he had to get behind because that's what his audiences expected. Let me just try to find that out. It's a dumb game we woke Westerners play
Yeah,
where we say all the right tribulate so people will like us. And then he goes with saying the F word for regulations, right? This was on the Fox interview. So
yeah.
he's asked about whether the ethics stuff is a front and, the people will like you. And he says, yeah. I mean, not, and then corrects himself to say not all of it, but essentially he talks about it, but does not do anything. And that's, I think that's a lot of activism today, is that it's a lot of virtue
Yeah,
signaling without tangible
yeah,
action. So
yeah.
he doesn't have to do anything, he just has to talk about it, and he
Yeah, I
admits
mean,
to it.
just act the part, and you will get along, you know.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
Even though the
So he's
company would be good, companies like terribly run. I mean the new CEO. I mean, who I think his name is I forget his last name is Ray, who handled the Enron bankruptcy. He
right.
just like describes the complete shit show like unfolding at FTX. He says that never in my career I have seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence. I mean, when the CEO of Enron bankruptcy, this is a complete
Oh
shit show. I mean, you know like how bad is it? Like, I mean, imagine like Enron was the, like, I mean, at least like in my generation, like it was like
my God, right,
a seminal fraud of like our generation, for a lack of better
absolutely.
term. I mean, when he says that this is like even worse than that, I mean, how bad was, I mean, it's just like insane, like how it could be worse than Enron. I mean, like compromised systems integrity, faulty regulatory oversight, concentration of control in inexperienced, unsophisticated, and compromise. The situation is unprecedented. I mean, this is just like, I think he could just use the every adjective he could. Like he just rammed
Absolutely.
into this statement. I mean, even the more hilarious part is like this. Later on, I think in a Twitter thread, like like employees were submitting expense reimbursement reports, and they would be accepted or rejected by emoji. I mean, who does that? I mean, very few records were kept. FTX had no cash management system. I mean, nobody knew how much cash was handed out, and I mean, corporate funds were used to purchase personal real estate. I mean, there was a report, right, that 121 million was used to purchase homes for FTX people, including like 16 million for the parents of SBF. I mean, which is kind of crazy. Like, if you're a corporate into corporate ethics or that, I mean, how would you not know that somebody grifting your $16 million home is like is a problem? Anyways, that's beside the point. But um I mean, it's just like insane amount of uh I mean,
Criminal
recklessness,
conduct.
or yeah, then I mean, it's just mind-boggling that how the company even got to a $32 billion valuation, right? I mean, imagine this company was valued at 32 billion, like in, let's say, late October, and today it's worth zero. I mean, you could just poof, like, I mean, 32 billion just went in smoke. I mean, or of investor funds
So,
went in smoke rather.
yeah,
I,
I
I
think
mean,
sorry,
not to
I
make.
was thinking of the cognitive dissonance part again. They've
Yeah,
invested so much.
yeah. And trust me, I'm not trying to make light of the situation. I mean, a lot of people have lost their hard-earned savings. So, I mean, our hearts go out to those people. But I mean, it's just like mind-boggling that, I mean, how so many people's hard-earned, I mean, wealth earned over lifetimes is just like gambled away by this bunch of folks within, let's say, a year, or let's say less than a year.
There's zero accountability. The problem is that none of these people are still being held accountable.
True,
So
true. Yeah.
it merely, shows honestly the success of the largest financial fraud. So it's so far it's kind of been successful. All right, I think it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm just going to let you conclude and summarize the entire episode, and
Hmm.
it's been massive, and there's a lot of information we've gone over as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um, yeah,
So yeah, I guess what had happened here is like I think it's a combination of a Ponzi scheme, which was like Alameda, and MF Global. Now, if listeners don't know, like MF Global was a major global financial derivatives broker, and what they did was they took 700 million of customer deposits and they took shortfall their losses. So they said like, oh, we'll make it up and give it back, but then they got found out and the company went under. So basically, it was like an Alameda Ponzi scheme versus a MF Global kind of using customer funds to cover their losses. So it was a combination of two. I mean, what happened is a bunch of stimulant taking, like high risk stimulant, high risk taking 30-year-olds who never thought of putting in the proper risk management went all in on leverage trades that blew up in the world, one of the worst frauds over. I mean, even when Alameda blew up, technically they could have cut the losses by saying, okay, Alameda is bankrupt, let it go. But I mean, FTX was doing decent business. I mean, but they could have taken a brutal hit from the Alameda bankruptcy, but hubris, being hubris,
right.
they use the customer funds and they end up in a bigger hole. I mean, for themselves. I mean, whether they get prosecuted or not is a different question. And as we talked a lot, like I mean, SBF skated under the radar because he had that potent mix, right? He had the technical wits like a Elizabeth Holmes. I mean, who recently just got sentenced to like this
Right.
past week or 11
Love,
years in
love.
jail for her fraud at Theranos. So she had the technical wits like Elizabeth Holmes. He had the Bernie Madoff skills where he could convince rich and powerful to invest money in him, and he had the political connections like Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, I'm not saying the sexual crimes part, but like he had this mix of Bernie, Jeffrey, and Elizabeth Holmes, where like he could keep the game running for a much longer time than a normal person would have. I mean, his
Mm,
political donations, he was hiring all the ex CFTCs, and I mean, except the crypto world, most of the people like he was all close with. I mean, Maxine Waters, sorry, and I remember the name, the chair of the House Financial Services Committee, was, I mean, blowing kisses in direction of SBI after one of his testimonies to crime. I mean, who does that? I mean, which politician is blowing kisses to a person? I mean, it's like just crazy. I mean, what now this happens is I think many of the crypto firms, as I said before, like they're going to have their funds on FTX are frozen. So now they are also going to be coming under the stress and there'll be more downward pressure. I think the blowback is that regulators are going to crack down hard on the crypto space. Now, usually what happens when such a big scandal happens, they kind of overreact and they just like put a broad sweeping brush to like, crush everything. So, I mean, now many crypto critics might say that, oh, we should just ban crypto as a whole, but it's not possible. I mean many of its critics want it's I mean some of it is fairly decentralized. You cannot, I mean, you can make the on ramp and off ramp. By what I mean in the on ramp and off ramp is like you're converting your fiat currency to a cryptocurrency. You can make that harder to happen, but it's not going to be like you can't just ban the whole space because you just don't like it. I mean, what this would happen is that I think Gary Gensler, like whose underlings have been hired by FTX, and he's going to come in for a lot of criticism because people are going to say like you were chummy with SBF, you didn't crack down on him hard. So I think he'll have to come out swinging just to preserve his credibility. So as I said before, I think most of the cryptocurrencies, I mean, interestingly, Gary Gensler had long time ago said that Bitcoin is a commodity, while everything else he hasn't labeled it, but probably it is a security. So Gary Gensler will have to crack down on these unregistered securities, which are all these altcoins other than Bitcoin. And because I mean, there are many cases like people have been doing a rug pull where they run away with investors' money or gets hacked due to some bug in the code. I mean, most of
absolutely.
them are like decentralized in name only. They are like few bunch of people control the rules and they overnight. I mean, gullible investors have been ripped off, right? Because they think, oh, this is this new crypto coin and this is decentralized and there's some great utility. And like, I mean, most people don't do the research before investing and, they just simply chasing the higher returns without looking at the underlying fundamentals. So, I mean, most of them will, I mean, probably they will have to be registered as a security, so people need to understand the risk with them, and also what has happened is, interestingly, that the Tom Brady, Giselle, and I think even the NBA superstar Stephen Curry, who were among the celebs who promoted FTX, I think because they have the money, all the people who lost money are just doing a class action lawsuit against them. I mean, because they were promoting FTX. Interestingly, last year, like Kim Kardashian was
Yeah.
fined 1.26 million because she was promoting some random altcoin. I mean, she was paying 250K, and I mean she ended up paying 1 million, which is like peanuts for her if you think of it.
Yeah.
So that has to be also like that crackdown also is coming on celebrities. Also, I mean, as I said before, you cannot have like Alameda running a market maker for an exchange FT where there's a blatant conflict of interest, right? I mean, there is
Absolutely.
no firewall between them, so you need to have, the regulators need to make sure that you cannot have a exchange and a market maker and probably like an FTX derivatives, which was going to be the settling agency, to connect it, because then you will be having a fraud with it. uh, and also the other problem is, I mean, the problem is not that it, like, this was not like a crypto problem, because many people like to say, oh, this is a crypto problem, that's why it happened because there was like bad internal controls, no risk
Yeah.
management. uh, I mean, there is this just shows the fragility of, I mean, interestingly, I mean, crypto is decentralized, but this shows the fragility of the centralized system where you have one bank or one exchange failing. So which shows that, I mean, when you have a crappy illiquid FTT token, I mean, it just could collapse in a matter of days. I mean, speaking of tokens, I mean, there will be questions asked to like Voyager, why were you giving unsecured loans to Three Arrows Capital? I mean, or even Voyager, why were you accepting such a crappy illiquid token as collateral? I mean, didn't you know that if this token went down, you would be in big trouble, right? So there are a lot of open questions on like, crypto firms, why were they taking loans, why was there no risk management, and that also there'll be, I think, a lot of calls for auditing these crypto firms, right? I mean, technically, I mean, the funny part was that one of the auditors, everybody asked like, who was auditing the FTX. So the auditor for FTX had an office in the metaverse, so which is a pretty red flag. I mean, if you have an office in the,
Wow.
no, I mean, they had a regular office, but they also had an office in. They're the first, one of the first firms to have an office in the metaverse. I mean, like, so that just raises red flags that, I mean, who was doing like demand on exchanges to show proof of reserves that they have the coins, right? I mean, they're not loaned it out to somebody else, and they are not like fraudulently using them to get loans or like doing buying out homes or whatever. So I mean, this also shows the importance of self custody as it relates to crypto. I mean, one powerful motto in the crypto world is not your keys, not your coins, which means that basically you need to self custody your crypto coins, which I think many people are realizing, and there is a lot of demand for self custody solutions now. I mean, because I mean, let's say even if there was no fraud, what if there was like a Mount Gox situation where the exchange got hacked and everybody took out the coins? So these are the like things coming on. I think in ending, the last point I would like to make is like, see, in the GFs, the global financial crisis in 2008, there was a central bank of last resort. Now in crypto there is no central bank of last resort. So what happened is many of these firms, like, they did leverage trades, and they got bailed out because the bank said, okay, we will backstop it with our money. But in a way, this is good for the crypto space, because at least the long leverage, the risky players get cleaned out, and at least the good run firms are kept standing at the end. I mean, problem is that it is very painful. People will lose their life savings, a lot of money will be lost. It's very sad, and bad for those folks. But I mean, some of this clearing out is needed from time to time. What has happened is that, I mean, businesses don't get wiped out of operation. They have these zombie companies running, and you just get
Mm.
a bigger bubble the next time. I mean, they say, like, as in a forest fire, if you have that small forest fire, like, it creates out the dead wood. But if you never even let even a small backfire in the forest, you will have a massive fire in that, because it became a bigger and bigger issue to happen. So it's not bad for the crypto world in the long term, but yeah, obviously in the short term there will be more pain to come.
No, absolutely. All right, Mohal, it's been a really enjoyable talk, and thank you so much for all this information, and
It was
thank
a
you for
pleasure.
joining us.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Namaste.